Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a terrific guest. This is one of my favorite people in all of Ponchatoula. She is beautiful inside and out. She's just one of the most fun people who gives of herself all the time through her job teaching children in our local schools and through her passion for pageantry, if you will. She is Mrs. Louisiana, a very prestigious title, which she'll tell us about. And I can't wait to hear the story on how she won that crown. But she's well known, so she probably needs no further introduction. Sandy Price, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad. I know you're super busy. You just let out with the summer as a teacher. And of course, You've got a big pageant coming up at the end of the summer in Las Vegas and plenty to do as Mrs. Louisiana. So thank you so much for making time for us. Why don't we kick things off with you just telling our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a local girl here, Ponchatoula. I actually moved here from Metairie years ago. I grew up on 7th Street, not far from Parker. We used to run around the streets of Ponchatoula, Parker, myself. The Lees, Chelsea and Tyler, the Shansbacks, all of us used to run around the park. We grew up watching
Those are the good old days, the old
Festival.
Memorial Park crew. You're right. Yeah, if you add the Thompsons in there, you have all four corners of the park, right?
That's right. You know, we used to go back and forth to the Strawberry Festival. I remember wanting to wear those straw hats, if you will. I know you remember that, Parker. And I used
the straw hats and the vest. Don't forget about the vest.
I remember growing up wanting to make sure that I owned one of those vests one day. And that's actually how I ended up becoming one of the JCs.
Oh, really?
Oh,
so
yeah.
you were in it for the vest. I love it.
I was. That is actually how I ended up becoming a JC. But I have a husband. He's amazing. His name is Scott Price, and
super nice guy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have Dylan, Brock, Parker, and Ella, and we live a wonderful life here in Ponchatoula.
That's really cool. And of course, your husband's one of the nicest guys in town. Neat to come up with him and all in kind of the same age group. What's the age range with those kiddos? Because obviously, I know Brock, your 13-year-old. Well, he's such a neat little kid, or now big kid, big boy. But tell us about how old are they? What's the age range?
So we have 21.
Mm-hmm.
And we have 13. Brock just turned 13, 12, and then Ella, which happy birthday, Ella. Ella just turned 9 Friday.
Oh, happy birthday, Ella. We will promise we'll get your mom out of here on time so she can come back and see you for birthday dinner. That's so special that you get to join us on Ella's birthday. I love the names, obviously I'm real partial to one of them, but Ella's a beautiful name for a beautiful little girl. Well, you mentioned growing up there on 7th Street, right down a block or so away from me and my brothers, and how cool it was running the roads. Tell me about, you mentioned Chelsea, your next door neighbor, Tyler, the whole gang. Who were your friends as a child? I mean, whether these are friends at school, friends in the neighborhood, who did you run with? And tell us about that if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, we had Genevieve Irwin. The Irwins were my brother and I's best friends growing up. I mean, you had Genevieve, Stephanie Knoll were the people that we primarily hung out with. So we had the Knowles, we had the Irwins, of course, Tyler. Tyler is one of my best friends now. I mean, and these people, even if you don't see these people for months at a time, years at a time, it doesn't matter. Even if you call these people now, they're going to come running. So Tyler is one of my best friends to this day.
I love that about Ponchatoula. And your brother comes to mind. He's a guy I don't see nearly as often as I like. But I might be walking downtown Hammond or whatever, and I see Steven, and it's like you don't miss a beat. I think back to Memorial Park and drafting the kids and who we would get in baseball, and playing tennis ball, baseball, or tackle football or whatever we did back then. It was really kind of a magical place to grow up. I know you moved away for a little bit
I
before
did.
coming back to raise Brock here. What kind of goes into a decision like that? Did you come back here to raise your family here in Ponchatoula to give them a similar experience to what you had, or
Absolutely.
yeah, is that kind of what went into play there?
Absolutely. I mean, I miss that small town feel just of Ponchatoula. Once you move away, you miss what you had.
Yeah,
You never understand what you had until you don't have it anymore.
yeah,
And I really understood what that meaning was whenever you move away. And you don't really understand it until you're gone. And I knew
yeah,
exactly what I wanted for him once I was gone. And just knowing what I could provide him here and with this small town feel, I knew I wanted it back. And just the school systems and what I had. And I was a member of the JCs in the town that I was living in. So I was actually traveling back and forth, coming here to be a part of the JCs.
Oh,
And
that's
not only
cool.
that, I was working here and I was also going to church here. So I was
So you're
doing
doing everything but
everything
putting your head on a
here.
Ponchatoula pillow at night, right?
Yes, I was doing everything here
Hmm.
except living here. So I was like, okay, something's got to give.
Yeah.
Something's got to give. So I went back.
Well, that's really cool. I'm some glad we got you back because I had my little brother Louis was in visiting this weekend with his family, and they're doing great in Houston, and I'm happy that they have such a great life there. But we've seen so many of our best and brightest leave town. So you were kind of that one great success story where you circle back to us, and I know the whole town's glad about that. You mentioned the school system, and we are going to get to the part of the school system that you play because you are now part of our schools being so great as a fifth grade teacher and doing so well. But before we get into your teaching career, why don't we talk about what school was like for you as a kid growing up here in Ponchatoula? Are there any teachers that come to mind? Coaches, administrators. When I say what was school like growing up in Ponchatoula, what comes to mind?
Sure. I mean, Miss Susan Lee was, she was not only my neighbor, but she was an absolute amazing teacher.
Yeah, great
So
woman.
she definitely comes to mind. My algebra teacher, she was an amazing teacher. Miss Lee,
Yeah,
she was a great teacher. And then you have Coach Thompson at the high
yeah.
school.
Hmm.
He was a great teacher.
Well, I can
Um,
still hear that booming voice in
oh
my head.
yeah,
The intercom. Students, this is your
oh yeah.
principal. Yeah,
I mean,
what a great guy.
there's so many teachers that I can name. I mean, I know just about every teacher that I have or
Hmm.
had, which is such a great experience for me. And that is, that's so touching to me. And my dad says it all the time. You can't remember the meal that you ate yesterday, but you can remember the teachers that you had. And what that means to us is, that they were just such a great mentor, and that is what I want to be to so many kids. So
Well,
that's why I do it.
it's so neat to hear you say that and to now have that full circle appreciation of being a teacher because it's true. I can remember with vivid clarity my first grade teacher, my fifth grade teacher, and
Right,
everyone in between. And you're right. I probably don't remember what I ate for lunch yesterday or,
right.
what I did last week. And now we see it through the lens of our own kids.
Mhm.
My older son is going into the first grade, and we have the distinct pleasure of living next to his pre-K teacher, Michelle Sellers, or Shell Shell, as he and the other students call her. And he just loves her. She's his favorite person in the world. And we were driving to swim lessons today, and he's rattling off some random scientific facts because the kid's, a scientist at heart, and he loves watching that. And I'm like, oh, wow, where'd you learn that? And he's like, Shell Shell, of course. So right now, probably somewhere in Ponchatoula, some kid's saying that about you. So it's kind of neat to hear you pay tribute to your old teachers. Um, do you have is it clear in your mind like when you got the inspiration that maybe that was something you would do one day? I mean, how's that story come about? How do you and when do you figure out that you're going to be a teacher?
So in your eighth grade book, like
Hmm.
when we did the what are they called, the books that we had to do.
I'm trying to remember. All I remember about my 8th grade report was I didn't make a very good grade. I wrote it on Bo Jackson, who was my favorite athlete at the time. And I don't
We'll
think my
put
teacher
all our
liked my
pictures
topic.
go in with
Uh-huh.
yearbooks.
Yearbooks. Okay, the
So
yearbook.
in the back
Gotcha.
of the yearbooks, they put, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" So I was
Right.
like, "All right, do I want to be a nurse or do I want to be a teacher?" So at that point in time, I knew that I needed to decide what I wanted to be. And I'm pretty sure that I put a nurse in there, but I regretted the fact that I put a nurse. So I knew from that point in time that I wanted to be a teacher. So I always knew that that is exactly what I wanted to do.
Very
So
cool.
that is when I knew.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, so now that you are a teacher, um, what is it that you love about the job? What is the thing that kind of, because we all know teaching a fairly thankless profession, right? You're underpaid, you're overworked.
Not about the money.
Right. It's never been more stressful than now with all the stuff we've been through from COVID to all these things that are going on. So, you've got to have something that just moves you out of the bed in the morning. And I know you, and I see the big smile on your face as we talk about the profession of teaching. I know how much, it gets your juices flowing. So why don't you share with our viewers, what is it that you just love about that job?
Well, it's definitely a gift from God. It's definitely not about the money. I believe that we are here to mentor children. That's it. We're here to mentor children. We're here to teach them, and we're here to lead them in the right direction. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective.
The bottom line.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
That's it.
Well, what about, let's flip side of the coin. What are the challenges in teaching? Okay, I know you're a positive person. You don't like to dwell on the negative.
There's definitely challenges.
It's important we be candid here. So what are those challenges?
Okay. So the number one challenge is, if we're being candid, is making sure that the parents are on the same page as us.
I figured it was going to be the parents. That makes sense. Yeah. Hard to argue that one.
Making sure the parents are on the same page as us, because, if the parents are not on the same page as the teachers, then, we typically have an issue. But, we do have some really great parents, to be completely honest with you. But when we're all on the same page, and then we're really getting the job done. We're really getting the job done, and like I said, we really have some great parents, some really great parents.
Well, let's talk about what makes a great parent great, because I think a lot of us, I'm not a young parent, but I'm kind of a rookie parent in that I started late and my kids are not that old yet. And so, kindergarten is as high as I've gone in the educational system. I can't really claim that I'm with it or that I'm kicking butt in that academic world yet. So for folks like me that are going through it, or folks who, may not be there yet, but maybe will one day, what advice would you give parents so that we can do our part and help you as teachers, get these kids to be on the right track?
I would say just making sure that you're being very, very active. And for me, I send out progress reports, I send out emails, and just making sure that you check those and you're staying on top of grades and staying on top of assignments. And anytime we send out any emails or send out any grades, or just staying on top of assignments and making sure that you're checking grades and just staying on top of that. Because, when it comes down to it, the end of the quarter or the middle of the quarter, and you're like, hey, what's up with, Seth's grades? I see that they're not doing very good, and it's a little too late at that point. There's nothing I can do at that point. We've been sending out emails and progress reports.
Right.
So, just making sure that you're staying on top of that and saying, hey, I received this email. Just saying that you received it, just making sure that, we know that you're seeing it.
So it sounds like communication's a big key,
Communication is key.
Yeah.
As teachers, we spend a lot of time communicating with the parents, not only the students, but also the parents. And just knowing that you're also, receiving those emails or receiving the messages or even the papers at that is huge for us.
Well, let me, on behalf of our town, thank you for your service teaching and all your
Thank you.
colleagues. The Ponchatoula teachers do a great job. We have wonderful schools here. It's a big calling card of this area. People move to this town because they want better schools, and it's thanks to people like you, Sandy.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. Why don't you peel back the curtain a little bit and tell us what a day in the life of a teacher's like around here? Because, we kind of know abstract wise it's hard work and you guys are, doing all these things, but, and not today. Today's summer. Let's hope you rested a little more and had a little more fun. But, during the school year, what's kind of the average day like for a teacher here in Ponchatoula?
Well, I would say we stay very busy. We
Right.
do. Once we wake up, get to school, we do have duty. We make sure that everything is on the board, is very transparent. The kids come in, everything is there, everything is laid out. I would say I wish that it was very easy. It is not.
But we know it's
It
not,
is
right?
not.
Not even
Um,
close.
Between running off assignments, making sure that everything is there. Like I said, we do communicate very well with the parents.
Yeah.
Between checking emails, making sure our doors are locked during the days, and just making sure that the kids are taken care of in the classrooms. Our
Yes.
days are very busy and very structured.
Yeah.
We do want to make sure that the kids are getting what they need in the classroom. So um, we're not, there's no lazy days by any means.
Right. Well, look, here's how I know it's hard. Here's how I know you're telling me the truth there. Because once upon a time, my dad was a teacher and he gave up on that career, teaching and coaching at Maurepas High School, to go get shot at for a living, a sheriff.
Yes.
So there's no way teaching is easy. I've got a comment here I'd like to share with you, Sandy, from our
Okay.
good friend. Speaking of great people serving the school system, Marshall Graves, that's bus number 30. I know that because my son, who played on Coach Marshall's basketball team, was very interested and made me call Coach Marshall and ask, "What's your bus number?" Because every time he'd see a school bus in Ponchatoula, he thought it was Coach Marshall, and he would be disappointed when he'd see another driver. So these guys, of course, play an integral role in the school system. But Marshall asked the questions here. What advice would you give kids who don't have concerned parents, and how can mentors or grandparents help? Great point, Marshall.
Okay.
Not everybody's blessed with great parents like Sandy and Marshall and I had, and we've got to help those kids too. So, what advice would you give in that situation, Sandy?
So I've had this actually happen. And that's where we come in as great mentors and as great teachers. So that's where we step up. That's where we
Right.
step up and we step in. And I've actually had that happen several times with my students. And that's where my calling comes in. To be
That's a
completely
great
honest
point.
with
So
you.
if a kid's not blessed at home for whatever reason to
Mhm.
have that guiding light, they can look to you as a teacher. They can
Absolutely.
look to Coach Marshall on the bus or at practice if he's coaching them.
Absolutely.
They can look to him maybe in the pew on Sunday when he's preaching. But I think you make a good point here in that
Mhm.
it takes a village,
That's what we're
and
here for.
we as community leaders and community members
Mhm.
need to realize not everybody has what we were blessed with growing up.
That's right.
And thank you to both of you for stepping up, because I
Mhm.
see Marshall doing this all the time in his ministry. When you pass by the Ponchatoula Community Center at night, if you see a bunch of cars out there, sometimes he's in there, as a man of God, helping local youth, ministering to them, helping them. And I know you're doing the same thing in the school system, Sandy, and that's really
Mhm.
great. So Marshall, God bless you. I love you, folks. If you want to learn more about Marshall Graves, got a great interview with him, an even better one with his son. His son talked about beating Michael Jordan in backyard basketball.
Oh wow.
One of the great stories in Ponchatoula history, but a great family like yours, Sandy. So thank you for Marshall for chiming in. To anybody who may be jumping on with us here late, we're here with Sandy Price, Mrs. Louisiana. We've been talking about her childhood, growing up right down the block from me on 7th Street, or right down the street from me, a block or so away, and all the good times she had with her friends. and all the way up to now, her teaching here in the local school system. But I know people are dying. We're 20 minutes into the program, and people are dying to hear about how you became Mrs. Louisiana. You will be competing for Mrs. America. This is a really big deal. This is not the kind of thing we see around here, you know. And so anyway, how did you get started? How did you get from little girl growing up in 7th Street by Memorial Park to wearing that crown and sash that you have on right now?
So I'm pretty sure somewhere back in the day, my mother and my grandmother took a little girl on stage kicking and screaming in New Orleans and put me on stage in this beautiful blue dress, and I won a crown, and I loved it. And so I had this little picture that I carried around with me all the time, and it inspired me to do pageants growing up. And I did compete in a few pageants, a Miss pageant here in Hammond, and then carried on to a friend talking me into doing Miss Baton Rouge back in 2007. So I competed in Miss Baton Rouge and decided that I was a little too young to compete in the Mrs. Louisiana, because I was actually able to compete in Mrs. Louisiana America then. But I was like, I'm a little too young. These women are a little bit older than me. And I was like, I'm probably not going to do as well. I'm really young. I'm really too young. I'm like, they're going to chew me up and spit me out. I was like, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait.
I have a hard time believing anybody could do that to you at any age, but we'll take your word for it.
So I ended up, just waiting. I had my son. I waited about 4 years, and then I competed. So I competed, and then I competed again, and now I competed again. So
third time's the charm. This is a story of persistence.
Charm, I guess.
That's great. Well, what's that competition like? Like, what goes into it? Tell us about where it is. I'm sure there were nerves involved. Were you as nervous as you were that first time in that blue dress as a little girl, or are you over it now that you're old and succeeded? Tell us about all that.
No. So to be completely honest with you, I would say that, competing this third time, I was way more nervous this time than I'd ever been. And a friend of mine,
that's surprising.
My friend Melody, she actually competed with me that day. And she said, we were just talking the other day, and she's like, I noticed you. And she was like, you were reading your notes, because that's what you do, or that's what I do. I was reading my notes before, you go into interview, because you want to do a little prep to know what you're going to talk about before you go into the interview process. And she's like, I noticed, and you were really nervous, and you just weren't yourself. And I wanted to come over and talk to you and give you a hug. And I was like, you should have, because that's me. Come over, come talk to me. And I was really nervous. And that just wasn't me. And
that doesn't sound like you, but what impresses me is it sounds like y'all have a sisterhood of sorts. So you say she's competing with you, but I would think she's competing against you, yet she wants to support you. Do I have that right? Or tell us about that.
Absolutely. And that's what I wanted to talk about. So, most people get pageanthood all wrong. Pageanthood is a sisterhood.
Well, yeah, because those of us that have seen the Sandra Bullock movies have a different impression. It seems a little more cutthroat.
Pageanthood is a sisterhood. And if people know me, I hang out with a girl, and her name is Carrie Meyer.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful woman.
Carrie and I competed with each other at Mrs. New Orleans, I don't know, maybe 9-10 years ago. And I ended up taking the title home, and we've been best friends ever since.
That's cool. That's a cool story.
We've been best friends ever since. It is a complete sisterhood.
And is it awkward for a bit, and then y'all kind of get over it, or is it you're instantly supportive? How's that work?
No, we share things during the pageant. We're like, hey, do you have lip gloss? Hey, do you have hairspray? Do you have, stockings? We use each other's steamers. We use each other's earrings. shoes.
So
It
no
doesn't
no
matter.
sabotage, because
No,
that's cool.
no,
Yeah,
no,
that's
not
cool.
at all. It is a sisterhood. It
That's
is
really neat.
nothing like people think it is.
Yeah, no, I would have definitely guessed
Nothing.
otherwise, and of course you've had, because you mentioned third time's the charm. You've been on kind of both sides of that, so I guess there's a lot of empathy that goes into it, right? I mean, you guys are
Absolutely.
all kind of having been through these emotional ringers together. Well, tell us about, you talk about winning and trying,
Right.
trying and trying again. So,
Mhm.
folks, if you're out there watching, this is another great little engine that could story. Folks familiar with the show might recall that our strawberry queen, Avery Myers, told a very similar
That's right.
story, and it's a great one. I really admire Sandy, that you stuck with it. But here you are, you've achieved your dream. You have a year. Okay, I believe it began in May. Correct me if that's wrong. But
That's
tell
right.
us about what's in store for you this year, because I know part of it will be competing for Mrs. America in Las Vegas. You're working with charities to promote things like Victoria's Voice
That's right.
Foundation. But tell us about, what does it mean now that you're Mrs. Louisiana? You got the job, the dreams come true. But what does that mean? What goes into it?
So there's this quote, and I'll read it. It says, "Don't ever be afraid to boldly step into all that God has for you." So
Beautiful.
I'm totally going to live by that this year.
So cool.
So Victoria's Voice. So with that said, Victoria's Voice has brought me into a whole different new realm of things. So Victoria's Voice is a foundation that I'm going to be working with the Mrs. America pageant. So Victoria's Voice was about a young girl. Her name was Victoria Siegel. She died at the age of 18 from an opioid overdose in 2015. And there's actually a really great book that they put out, and it had to do with her diary. It was written about her diary. And if you actually, I haven't sat down and actually read the whole book, but I did read some of it, and it's crazy. I mean, some of it had to do with, like, I was prescribed, this drug today, and it made me feel so good. And I mean, it was
so sad.
Oh yeah, it's very bad. And I mean, this was a billionaire family that lived in Florida.
Yeah.
And I guess, maybe she was overseen by her family. I haven't really dove into it, but go ahead.
No, please go ahead. Finish. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So the Victoria's Voice Foundation, what they have done is they've put together several different things. I'm just going to read some of my notes that I have here. So what they'll actually do is, and which I'm very, very excited about. So I haven't spoken to Ponchatoula Parish yet, or any of the parishes yet about this, but they'll actually send speakers to schools. So, if anyone is interested, they can actually contact me or send me an email. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a school. And then I'll get in touch with my director, and then my director will get in touch with Victoria's Voice Foundation, and they'll send speakers.
That's really cool.
Oh yeah, they'll send speakers. They actually have teen video challenges. They work with influencers, and those influencers reach millions of teens on social media. What is so crazy to me is they actually have, it's called victory clubs, and those victory clubs do, like, incentivizing. And what they do is, which I'm super excited to do with my children, once they become of age, obviously, is they will take them. We'll take them, and they'll do drug testing.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
if they have a negative drug test, they will incentivize them and give them rewards. And what those rewards are could be discounts to Disney World, Papa John's, I mean, you name it, and they will incentivize them with it. So, I mean, and it's easy as them becoming a member.
Yeah,
So
this sounds like an amazing organization. I've taken the liberty.
amazing.
In the comments below, folks, I've found their
Amazing.
Facebook page and I put a link to it so you can check it out. And it's got all kinds of great resources,
Yes.
pictures of Victoria, her story. And
And
this
this
really
is
hits
the
me
book.
because Sandy, every family. Oh, there, you got it with you. Perfect.
Yes.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. And this is some of the pages in the book of what she wrote
from her journal, from her diary. Oh, wow. Yeah,
Yes.
that's got to be just gut wrenching and powerful because addiction touches every family, and you mentioned
Absolutely.
a billionaire family, a poor family, everybody in between. And it's gut wrenching. And this opioid, especially, as an injury attorney, 100% of my clients are hurt. Usually it's neck, back, it can be other stuff. But over the course of 20 years and 1,200 clients, I have seen people in excruciating pain. And sometimes they've been led down the wrong path treatment wise and gotten the wrong drugs. And unfortunately, they can get hooked on that stuff. Thankfully, we're seeing a lot of evolutions in healthcare now. And local providers are especially careful to try to avoid opioid addiction. But it's just terrible. It's an affliction on this country. And you're doing important work there because, anybody that you can help avoid that, get through that, endure it, wow, that's just God's work, Sandy. So thank you for picking that as a passion project for you.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It excites me to know that there's such great work in that, and I'm hoping that I can work hand in hand with them to be able to bring speakers here to Louisiana. And it doesn't even have to be with the school board. I mean, it can be with local churches. It can be with anybody.
Hey, it can be on Ponchatoula Live. Get them to come join us.
Absolutely.
We'll bring you back.
I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about it. And, and that's the thing. Like, people ask, I had someone ask me, do you think that, this title is a pedestal or a platform? And I'm like, well, it's definitely not a pedestal. It's definitely a platform. It gives me the opportunity to speak, and it gives me the opportunity to get things out there. I'm not here just to sit back and not use my voice. And so this is a way to use my voice. This is a way to get things out there, like Victoria's voice, like me to be able to speak about me having, too many strokes and just different things like that. Being a teacher, being a mentor.
I definitely want to get to that. And before we do, I want to share this comment. So Sharon Miller, wonderful woman here. She and I went to high school together, and I got to see her this week for the first time in ages at the Vacation Bible School right there a block away at the at First Baptist Church. She's got a beautiful little girl who's the same age as my little boy. And she comments here to you, Sandy, that this is awesome. This is a much needed support organization. So Sharon, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing.
I'm so excited.
Your comment. And we love you. Sharon's brother lives next door to my parents. The Millers, as everyone knows, a great old Ponchatoula family. So, folks, we're here with Sandy Price, Ponchatoula hometown girl, local teacher, Mrs. Louisiana. Oh, got another comment coming in here. Kristen Williams says, amazing program. What a way to honor their daughter and help so many. Hope we can get speakers in the area. Sandy, she asked, do they sell the book in retail stores? Do you know how people can get it?
I'm not sure. And so Kristen is actually one of my long-term friends as well. So
cool.
She is one of my best friends. So
Kristen can borrow your copy anytime, right?
Yes, she can get this. She can borrow this, but you can actually get it on their website. And I do want to say they take donations for this as well. So anybody that wants to send donations, please contact me. I'd love to do that, but you can also contact me, and I will see how we can get you a copy of the book too.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. That sounds like a great program, and we're
I'm so excited to be
happy to promote it. They could not have a better platform than you to share that with our local community.
Thank you so much.
In the whole state of Louisiana. But you mentioned something I want to circle back to, which is you suffered 2 instances of many strokes. And I know that
He did.
stroke awareness is something you've promoted and been very vocal about. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us about your story, what that was like, and how
Sure.
you spun and turned that into a positive to help protect others.
Sure. So the month of May is Stroke Awareness Month. So about 5 years ago, I was driving down the road and all of a sudden I couldn't talk.
Whoa.
And I was like, what is this? This was really weird. And I, had a numbing sensation down the whole left side down my whole left side. And at the time, all I could think to do was call my stepchildren's mother. She was a nurse. And I'm like, hey, are you at work? And she worked in the emergency room. And she's like, no, I'm not. And at the time, I pulled over on the side of the road and they jumped in the car, and her and my sister-in-law, they came and picked me up, rushed me to the emergency room, and that was that. And about a month later, I had another one.
That had to be terrifying because you've been so fit. You're a young woman. This had to come out of left field. I mean, how do you feel about this? Was it as scary as it sounds?
Oh, it's very scary. Very, very scary, considering I never knew anything about it. So after further research, it turns out that I have what's called antiphospholipid disorder. So I have a blood clotting disorder. So what happened?
And is that something that you think you've had your whole life and just didn't show up till now, or how does that work?
Supposedly, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's something that I've always had. I mean, unfortunately, I've had several, and I mean, I'm okay to talk about it now, but I mean, I've had several miscarriages in my life, and it has to do with the antiphospholipid disorder. And I didn't know that. I didn't know I had the antiphospholipid disorder until I went to a specialist. And it turns out that, and come to find out, I mean, my son was born with a cleft lip, and I'm sure it all has to do with the antiphospholipid disorder and a lot of other little things that are involved with it. So, I mean, obviously I take some medication to try to prevent it. And all I want to do is raise awareness to the people that are unsure, that don't know that they could possibly have it. And hopefully,
That's so important. So so let's talk about this. So how can people be aware and be on the right lookout for this condition?
I mean, of course I didn't know until I went and had a bunch of blood panels done to try to to try to get pregnant, and I couldn't figure out why. Right. So that's when I found out that I had it, and then we circle back around and saying, oh, okay, that's probably why you had the TIAs. And then of course, like I mentioned previously in a personal conversation with you, Crystal at that eye care clinic saw something.
Yeah, Dr. Crystal Gildner. Yes. She's been on our show, folks. Yeah, wonderful local doctor. So she helped you diagnose it, right?
She actually went in and thank you, Dr. Crystal, and I'll mention this. She actually went in on a eye scan and saw where I had lack of blood flow to the back up, and I could be totally saying this incorrectly. So,
well, you'll say it better than I ever could. So go for it. If
she's watching, she can go and make a comment on this later. So
right.
She showed that there was lack of blood flow to the eyes, which would have shown that there was like lack of blood flow, I guess, to the brain or to the eyes or whatever. So
I'm so glad you mentioned this because as I said, Crystal's been on the show, and folks, you can look in our video section of this page and see all our interviews. And Crystal talked about all the things that they can do to help prevent and diagnose, illnesses and injuries. And you're like the success story. I mean, you're here with us doing well because you've been properly treated. You're taking medication. You're properly diagnosed. So here we are like a year or two later, and you're kind of proving true everything Dr. Crystal told us
Yeah,
when
she
she
was
said,
great.
go get your eyes checked out, folks,
She sends everything to my neurologist.
Uh-huh.
She sends all those diagnoses over to my neurologist. My neurologist was extremely impressed with
That's
everything
great.
that she sent. So I highly, highly recommend Dr. Crystal.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely.
She and Mandy and the whole team do a great job. They're
Yes.
taking good care of me as a patient.
Hometown,
Yeah.
hometown, hometown girls.
Yeah,
For
well,
sure.
that's cool. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I know that's really important, and it's important to you,
It
and I
is.
really appreciate you sharing that. Well, what else would you like to share with us, whether it relates to the pageant, your work, just anything? What's on your mind?
I want to make sure that people are recognized for mentorship, and
That's
just
a
make
great point.
sure that everyone knows that, pageantry, that we're here to be recognized for the fact that we're doing it to be a mentor.
Yeah.
And again, we're doing it to make sure that, our voices are being heard, and we're doing it for a reason.
I love that you brought that up because you see evidence of great mentors in Ponchatoula all over. We had one commenting on the show earlier, Marshall Graves. I see him mentoring young men all the time, and women too. His wife, Amy, they do great, but mentorship is so important. When I look back on my life, any faults I have are my own. I was blessed with wonderful parents, and the Lord knows they did the lion's share. But I can look back, and whether it was Coach Mutt Burner on the baseball field when I was little, or Mark Griggs when I was, older, just at all these stages of life, Andy Edwards when I became an attorney, they've been folks here in town, typically born and bred right here in this little, 705-454,
That's
but it's a
right.
big deal. And there are you guys, and I see it in the world of pageantry through my own wife. We talked earlier about Avery Myers.
That's
Her
right.
mother, of course, was her, first and foremost mentor, herself a former
That's
Strawberry
right.
Queen, Emily. But my wife,
Your wife.
considers Avery like a little sister. She lived with them. They were all roommates. And when Avery was a little girl, and I see her Avery getting mentorship from, in her case, a ton of queens. She has a litany of queens. There's Leslie and
That's
and and,
right.
and all of these. Too many to name. But I know that, and it's neat to hear you talk about that. You and your best friend, y'all come from competing for a title to, I love that you say competing with, and
That's
y'all
right.
are out there doing this and finding young women. So that's a really cool story. Your son Brock, who I now know, I didn't know till today what a miracle baby he really is, that he's here with us and healthy and handsome and all the things that he is. He really, all your kids, you and Scott's kids, they should be really proud of you, as I know your
Thank
parents
you.
are, as I know your brother and everybody in your family
Okay.
is.
My mom's watching. She's
Yeah.
she's there somewhere.
Thank you for tuning in. I always know if I get a great guest like you, it guarantees viewership, right? Nobody tunes in for me. But Sandy, you've been, I knew you would be, and you lived up to the hype. You've been a true pleasure to
Thank
interview here
you.
today. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
doing this show.
I appreciate you having me, and
Yeah. Well, look,
especially let me speak about those things. And
of
I
course.
do want to say I do have some really great sponsors.
Yeah, please tell us
And
about them.
Cajun 180 for sure.
Mhm.
So definitely be on the lookout for that. Cajun 180 spices. So I'll be sharing a good bit about him as well. So please be on the lookout for that. He's
Well,
a
that's
local man.
great. I want to hear
Yes.
it. Tell folks, because Parker Layrisson Law Firm wants to sponsor you too. We've got a local girl
Oh,
hitting the big
thank
time. We
you.
want to help with that. But tell us,
Yes.
for other folks watching that may want to help, how can we do that? How can we get in touch with you and sponsor you and help you?
Yes, you can send me an email at sandyrprice@gmail.com. Very,
Excellent.
very simple. sandyrprice@gmail.com. Yes,
Folks,
thank you.
let's all do our best to step up and support our own local girl who's going big time on us here, because it's not going to be cheap for her to go and compete. in Vegas, and hopefully we'll have a Mrs.
Hopefully,
America
I
here
bring
one
that
day.
home, Mrs. America. Yes, and I'll let you guys know. I'm hopefully it's syndicated and it's on TV this year. So
Oh, very
I'll
cool.
let you know what channel.
Yeah, we will be tuned in for sure. We've got other comments coming in here. Our friend Cherie, boy, it was Cherie Kinchin Wells. It was great to see her the other day. Her child won a bike and a program through our firm, and just a great family. But she says, Sandy, that you are an amazing person, beautiful inside and out, and she congratulates you on this, and she loves you.
Thank you so
Cherie,
much.
thank you for tuning in. And I have saved the best comment for last. Your husband, Scott. Good to see you there, brother. He says he's super proud of you.
Oh,
And
thank you,
it's not
honey.
just your hubby. The whole town is proud of you. So, folks, there you have it. Sandy Price. She lived up to the hype. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you.